Hey Patreon crew, Matt Easton here. So I'm spending a lot of time at the moment re-looking at Waite's work. John Musgrave Waite, who wrote Lessons in Sabre, and essentially one of the things I'm focusing on is how to cut. Now, how to cut would seem like an incredibly simple thing. If I just grab a sword, let's grab, I nearly grabbed a toolbar, I'll talk about that in a second. Let's just grab a sabre, okay, as being a kind of average sword. Now, how to cut, a lot of people will say, well, quite simply, you just deliver a cut. There we go. Is that a cut? Yes, it's a cut. However, there's so many complicated factors involved in giving a successful cut. Obviously, there's the effect that it's going to have on the target. It has to be traveling with enough momentum and force, with edge alignment in the correct portion of the blade, blah, 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 all of the other stuff, in order to take effect on the target. But more than that, you're faced with someone who's trying to hit you. So very clearly, if I'm fighting someone who's in front of me here, and I step in towards them into hitting distance while raising my hand up to hit them, as frankly some people might find it natural to do, if I do that, like this, I'm going to get either skewered or hit on the way in, aren't I? Either in my body, my head, my sword arm, something like this. One of the safest things to do against someone who just does go, ah, and swings at you like this, is just to go, bam, straight into their sword arm and chop their sword arm off, okay? So it seems simple, but anyway, there we go. You can do it from either direction, incidentally. If you look at Talhofer, for example, he does it from this side. It's quite nice because it makes a cover, in other words, a guard, but aimed at the person's arm. So as they come in to chop like this, leading with the arm instead of with a weapon, you just step in and go bam, straight through their arm and lock their arm off, which is nice, easy, quick end to the fight. But in sabre treatises, we assume that the opponent kind of knows what they're doing, okay? So generally speaking, in British sources, and French I would say as well, we are taught to cut from the wrist. So if I'm in Waite's engaging guard here, his cut one, for example, comes with minimum movement of the arm. It doesn't move the arm like this to expose the arm. Instead, it comes straight from here to here. Okay, so from here to here. So really, there's no time or space for the opponent to counter hit, or what's called time hit, or time stop thrust, or time hit my arm or any other bit of my body. Okay, so it's straight from there to there. Okay, now clearly that is not a very powerful cut, but does that matter? Not really, not if you're hitting them first in the correct portion of their neck or head, and of course you're forming, when you're doing it, you're doing this and you're also behind your sword, behind a covered line, such that they might, you wound them, even if it's slightly, they try and hit you back, you can easily guard that and have another go at it. If we did that in any other way, if we made a larger movement, then they would have more time to defend or more time to single time hit you back. But if we look at other weapons, so I'll just grab a tulwar for a second. So with a tulwar, we can't really do that, can we? Or can't we? I don't know. If we start with the sword out, can I just simply redirect the sword from here to here? I can. That's pretty uncomfortable because of the shape of the disc, shape of the pommel, okay? So generally speaking, I have to give a draw cut, and to give a draw cut, I generally have to move the arm through a bigger amount of space. That does theoretically leave me vulnerable to a stop hit or a time hit. However, we could say that usually tulwars are used with a shield or a buckler, which changes everything, because it means I can now cover my sword arm while I prepare a blow. Okay, so imagining I've got a shield, let's just grab a buckler. There we go. If I've got a buckler in the way here, then it enables me, even if my sword starts out here, to do things with my arm at the same time as protecting my arm with the buckler. Okay, so I can charge a blow and give it while protecting it with the buckler. Can't do that if I don't have a shield or a buckler. So therefore, what do we find in medieval treatises? We find positions such as this given, which means as soon as I start to give a cut, it is direct and there's no charging movement. It's just instantly straight to the target from there to there and through. Okay, So it's funny that you see two different periods, and on the surface of it, two very different philosophies about how to use a sword. I'll just put the tool down for a second and pick up our favourite, the giant falchion. Two very different philosophies. One where we start with a weapon out in front and we want to move directly to hit someone, but because the weapon's in front, we've got to give impetus to the sword, but we don't want to bring it all the way back here and then back out again, because that would give the opponent time to defend and time to hit me. So therefore we try and minimise the movement, we try and make it small, okay? But if we've got a medieval or an Asian sword which doesn't have much hand protection, we don't start with that. I mean, clearly you're not going to fence with a falchion held out in front of you like this. It's going to start back here, something like that. If you don't have a shield or a buckler to protect the line of the sword arm, then really you almost have to start with the hand back, don't you? Because you want to make a direct movement. You don't want to start with the weapon unloaded, then load it, then unload it, okay? Because what's going to happen is you're in unload. As you move to load, you're going to get hit, and then you don't have time or the chance or the life to unload. So instead what you do is you take it from the unload and you start in the load position. And from the load position, you can now unload in a direct straight line. So funnily enough, and this is the point I'm trying to get around to, one of the things that Waite claims to be doing is trying to make Sabre more like foil and more efficient, okay? And what's interesting is what he ended up doing is, although it looks very different, and he came to a very different way of doing it, he's actually doing something which in some ways is more like what we find in both Asian and European medieval treatises. Something to ponder on, something to think about. I'm sure I'll be doing a public video that relates to Waite's system soon as well, because I'm very kind of deep in it at the moment, and I'm working on the Waite book again at last. I'm back in it, and I'm aiming to finish that off. So I'm kind of really going deep penetration into Waite at the moment. Cheers folks, and I'll see you for the next YouTube or Patreon video really soon. Cheers! Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We have extra videos on Patreon and you can follow us on Facebook.